Hello, and thank you for joining me. So towards the end of last year, I was in London when the tube strikes were underway. And this meant I had to plan my journeys to allow for walks across parts of central London a few times. And I was initially a little frustrated by the inconvenience of this. However, on the day as I walked the city streets, I realised what a gift it was. Google Maps took me down streets I didn't know and past sites that I would have missed had I been stuck in a dirty metal tube underground. I even popped into the Natural History Museum as I had allowed too much time. I also walked past a statue in Kensington that caught my eye, and it's this one that's hopefully going to appear here. It's called The Return of the Prodigal by Charles Mackesy. I thought the sculpture was really evocative, and I remembered the parable of the prodigal son. The son returns home, having blown his inheritance on a life of debauchery, yet his father welcomes him back with open arms and puts on a grand feast to celebrate. This, however, upsets the elder son, who has stayed loyally by his father's side, working the farm, and he doesn't see why his brother should be rewarded. The father's response is to say to his eldest son that as he's always been with him, all that is his father's will be his son's, but that his brother that was lost is now found, and so it is a time to rejoice. I love the contrast in reaction from the father, who is elated, to the brother who is put out. But the plaque under the statue didn't give a gender. It just said the return of the prodigal, and it looked more like a daughter. So what was her story? What was clear is that the father was equally happy to see her return, and the artist himself talks of a daughter who, having rejected her father, eventually goes home to him, and he's never stopped waiting for her. I'm not blind to the religious symbolism of God welcoming back sinners, and I can see that making the prodigal a daughter, the figure now becomes universal, so we can all seek forgiveness. But it's that bit about the reaction of those we return to that intrigued me, how a brother and father can react so very differently. The name of the artist also resonated with me, Charles Mackesy, but I couldn't think why. I did do a fine art degree many years ago, but I couldn't remember him in my studies. So I looked him up, as you do, and I realised he was the author and illustrator of this wonderful book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. I'm sure many of you have read it, or perhaps seen the animated version that came out at Christmas on the BBC. It's probably still on iPlayer. It's a book about love, friendship and kindness. And it's also told in such a beautifully simplistic way that it lifts your heart. Often the pages work on their own as much as they do as part of the narrative. And my favourite one is this one here, with the mole saying to the boy, one of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things. One of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things. I believe that the way we react to the situations around us or the events in our lives are not only ours to control, but they can also strongly determine our outcomes. How we react to things determines our thinking, and our thinking determines our actions, which in turn creates our results. If we want different results, then we need to first tune into ourselves and recognise our own reactions, acknowledge them, maybe sit in them, and only then respond. I hope, like the father, we can then respond with love, which in his case results in a hug and a feast. The alternative is an automatic reaction, which in the brother's case only leads to resentment. Such a stark difference, such contrasting outcomes, yet such a simple choice. I can be annoyed by the rail strikes, or they can open a whole world of possibilities for me. As the mole says, one of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things, and it is ours to choose. We love working with leaders and employees and people on the shadow they create and the impact they have in the world around them. Thank you very much for listening.